Welcome everyone to this briefing brought to you by the Israel Defense and Security Forum, IDSF. In Hebrew, our name is Habitchonistim. IDSF is the leading Israeli organization advocating for strong national security-oriented policies to guide the state of Israel. We are a movement of more than 20,000 people, including many reserve officers and operators from all branches of the Israel Defense establishment. Thank you so much to all of our viewers and supporters for tuning in to these briefings. It's a great honor to be able to bring to you really behind the headlines of this war and much analysis. I'm joined today by Brigadier General Amir Avivi, founder and chairman of IDSF, and we're going to use the time together to really do a rapid fire session of many questions that all of our viewers have sent in. So thank you so much to everyone who has submitted a question, and it's not too late. You can submit a question right now in the chat, and we will very much try to get to it. General Avivi, thank you so much for your time today.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, the first question, very much in the headlines that Prime Minister Netanyahu has reportedly rejected a plan for Saudi-led Arab coalition to rebuild Gaza, and it included the obligation, the requirement to have a Palestinian state. What are your thoughts on that plan?
Well, I think that talking about the day after, basically, first and foremost, we have to destroy Hamas. We're not still in this stage, we're on our way, but it's a long process. I think that we'll spend years afterwards being responsible of Gaza, especially militarily, and dismantling this huge terror infrastructure. It's going to take a lot of time. A Palestinian state means doing, again, separation, taking out the IDF. This is not a viable reality. We need to control the Egyptian border. We need full freedom of operation everywhere in Gaza forever. So any kind of solution there will have to be like a local leadership and not a Palestinian state. And any idea of bringing the Palestinian Authority that funds terror in billions in sites and wants to destroy Israel is not a viable solution. So I think that the Prime Minister was right to reject this. What we can do with Saudi Arabia and Emirates and so on is incorporate them in processes of denazification of the society. They have been working a lot on changing hearts and minds in Saudi Arabia and in the Emirates, bringing new education programs, new religious programs. This is things we can incorporate and learn from. How do you take a radical Muslim society and through a generation change hearts and minds? But it won't happen if Israel won't be with freedom of operation and really preventing any buildup of terror.
The way it's being presented in the media is that the Saudis are pushing a Palestinian state, and if Israel does not go along, it could jeopardize Saudi normalization. Do you think that's really part of the issue here? They really want a Palestinian state?
We had this for many diplomats, among others, the American diplomats. And one of the American diplomats from the embassy stated the same thing. He said, you know, how can we move forward? The Saudis want a Palestinian state. And I told him, with all due respect, I don't think this is the case. I think the administration wants this. The Saudis, I would say it bluntly, couldn't care less. And they completely disregard the Palestinians. I don't think it's such a big issue for them. They are much more worried about Iran and about Muslim Brotherhood that endangers them. They need a coalition. And I think that it's a huge, huge mistake of the administration to mix the Palestinians in a regional global issue that has to do with countering this Chinese, Russian, Iranian front that has emerged, dealing with all these proxies, dealing with the nuclear Iran. Why mix a dead end? It's obvious that there's nothing that can be promoted in the Palestinian arena. We have a long war in Gaza. We have years of cleaning up this place. We are looking at the end of the days of Abu Mazen, and nobody knows even if there will be a Palestinian Authority the day after. So it's not smart to really try to hurt the process of building a very important coalition by mixing it with the Palestinian issue.
Do you think that the U.S.-Israel relationship is really being jeopardized right now if Israel is not listening to these recommendations?
No, I don't think so. I think that as much as we depend on the U.S. needs Israel. We are the only anchor today the U.S. has in the Middle East. They need Israel to be strong. And this is, among other things, why the administration is really pushing munitions and assisting. We don't see eye to eye the Palestinian issue, and it's okay. We don't need to see everything eye to eye, but we have enough interests that we share. And I think that in this sense, overall, the relations are stable and good.
In the last briefing we did, you shared with us the need to really have operational control of the Gaza Egypt border. Are you able to share an update on what's happening there, and also what the involvement is with the US in that plan?
So, as I'm saying all the time, we need two basic things. We need to control the Egyptian border to prevent the flow of weapons and know-how and money and terrorists into Gaza and out, and also full freedom of operation. At the moment, the IDF is still focusing on Khan Yunis, still attacking with all the brigades in Khan Yunis, and we're still focused on the central camps. So we didn't reach the point where we are attacking in Rafah and taking control of the Egyptian border, but the time will come. We'll have to do that. And then the question is, how do you control the border? What kind of capabilities? We said to the Prime Minister that with all due respect to technology and technological ideas, the most important thing here is not the technology. The most important thing is being physically on the border and controlling it. Now you control it from really the Egyptian Gazan border, or you can control it from another place. It can be between Rafah and Khan Yunis, which is an open space where maybe it's easier to build some kind of technological obstacle. But at the end of the day, you have to stop the flow of capabilities from Egypt going into Gaza.
Within the government and within the top echelons of leadership of the IDF, is there consensus that Israel needs to maintain a strong military presence in Gaza after this war?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I know that the Minister of Defense thinks like that, the Prime Minister. But no, I don't think that all the generals share that. And it's sad because professionally, it's obvious that that's the only choice we have to prevent a buildup of a military entity again, a terror state in Gaza.
Thank you. Let's now move to the north. Yesterday, the IDF spokesperson issued a statement that the chances of war in the north have increased. Can you share a little bit about what is happening there?
So, we're facing a reality where our citizens are evacuated. They cannot go home. They will only be able to go home if Hezbollah completely withdraws from South Lebanon. If we are not able to diplomatically do that, the only choice is war. Now, to do it diplomatically, you need American leadership. You need America to lead coalition, to threaten Iran, threaten Hezbollah, bring forces, and so on. And well, if it's not happening, the chances of war and complete stabilization of the whole Middle East is growing, because the war with Hezbollah won't end with Hezbollah. We'll have to deal with Iran as well, eventually.
So since you mentioned Iran, I'll ask you a question about Iran. Yesterday on our briefing, we had Admiral Eli Marom, and I asked him if he thought that there would be a need to have a direct fight between Israel and Iran before the end of this war. He gave a very definitive yes, that would be necessary. So I'll ask you the same question. Is it just a matter of time before there is an Israel or US strike on Iran?
So I also share his view. I think we must deal with Iran. Iran is the source of everything that's happening. And we don't need to play Iran's game. Iran's game is to utilize many forces, all these proxies, and send us to fight them. And we shouldn't play this game. We have to deal with Iran. The best way to deal with it is a coalition. The best way is the American leadership. But even if Israel needs to deal with it alone, if we are forced to fight Hezbollah, this is the moment we need to attack Iran.
Now, Iran and Pakistan are attacking each other's territories. Iran is sending missiles into Iraq, into Syria. Are you able to explain to us what is happening and what the implications are for Israel?
Well, Iran sees itself as a global and regional player, and they represent the Shia Islam, and they are fighting the Sunnis. So they are not only challenging Israel, but also challenging all the Sunni states, like Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, and so on, and Sunni forces in Iraq. So this is our chance, because there are other entities that are threatened by Iran, to try to really build a coalition and work together to deal with this huge threats.
Pakistan is a nuclear power. So can you just explain, are they an ally of Iran? Would they use their nuclear weapons at Iran's wishes, or they'll use them against Iran one day?
Pakistan is a Sunni state. They are enemies of Iran, not allies of Iran. I think that if we manage to bring about a peace agreement with Saudi Arabia, there is a good chance that we'll also have relations with Pakistan. And not only Pakistan, also Indonesia, Malaysia, Oman. So I see Pakistan as an opportunity. Like Azerbaijan, they surround Iran, and we need to do to Iran what they are doing to us. They're surrounding us from Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, even forces inside the Palestinian Authority in Judea and Samaria. We need to bring the war to them and surround them in Azerbaijan, in the Gulf states, in Pakistan, and deal with them on their home, not ours.
Over these past 3 months, people seem to talk a lot about the denazification of Gaza. Without the denazification of Iran, is everything for naught? Is there a possibility of normalizing with the broader Arab world who are not currently normalized with Israel?
Iran is a very diversified society. 50% are Persians, 25% Azeris. You have Kurds, you have Arabs. Even among the Persians, not all of them support the regime. Many people there would like to change the regime, but they don't feel they have any support from the West. I think that challenging Iran militarily, that might be a moment where the society will be emboldened enough to challenge them. And this is also some kind of after effect that really make a difference if we really challenge them. So I think that's there is a need to bring this regime to fall, but it won't fall if we don't help it to fall. We need to do our side as a Western society.
And do you think there's a real possibility of the regime falling and a transformation of their society without war, without somehow the US, Israel, all of these countries sending missiles, meaning they're not going to go down quietly?
Not really. I think that the regime is managing to terrorize the society in such a way and also divide and conquer. There is not one leader to this opposition. So the opposition is not very effective. And this is why, although there are many people hope that there will be a fall of the regime, we see that they managed to survive and continue their vicious plans.
Thank you. And thank you again to all of our viewers for sending in questions. We have a whole bunch of assorted questions on assorted amount of issues. In terms of Israel's need to build up its own defense industry, we've spoken about that in the past. Are there real plans right now in Israel to make that a reality? And how long would it take for the Israel Defense Establishment to be able to produce in-house its own munitions?
It's a process that takes years. It's not something you can do fast. The Prime Minister already announced that we're moving towards this. This announcement is, I think, like 20 years late. And for me personally, I'm more angry about that than even about the terrible intelligence failure, because it's something we understood long time ago we need to do. And the government and the military establishment didn't take care of that. And this is a big failure. But I'm hoping that now we are moving faster, but still, it's not something you can do fast. Building a military, a very robust industrial capability of producing different kinds of munitions, it's a long process.
And what was the resistance? Is it an economic decision or this sense that we always have the US to rely on?
I think that there is a group that feels comfortable with this reliance, which for me, it's terrible. I think it's a huge mistake. I think it's taking risk on all of the Jews' future. Israel cannot be dependent on its existence on nobody. The only thing that we are dependent, and it doesn't have to do with our existence, is the Security Council and the need to have American veto when they want to pass a resolution against us. Now, a resolution is a resolution. It's not an existential threat. It's not somebody that is killing you. So when we talk about threats, military threats, terror threats, we need to be able to defend ourselves by ourselves and not rely on anybody. And it's achievable. It's not that complicated. We are a strong economy. We are a strong country. We can afford to invest money in our industries, and not only it's affordable, it's profitable. It's obvious that if we invest in our industries, they will then sell also these capabilities to other countries who are going to make a lot of money of that. It's not a waste of money, it's an investment in our own technology, our own capability, and our own industry. And this is what we need to do.
Sure. Let's talk about another threat, which is the internal threat in Israel, which was, of course, very strong before October 7th. In the last couple of days, Both the US and Israeli press have reported loud disagreements between Prime Minister Netanyahu and Galan Gan and the IDF about the conduct and goals of the war in Gaza. Do you think these disagreements are harming the IDF's operational abilities during this war?
I think that there are no real disagreements about the goals of war. The goals are clear. We have to destroy Hamas and we have to release the hostages. But when you go to how to do it and how to deal exactly with the hostages and so on, we see some disagreements. I think that it's okay to have discussions, but it's very, very important that the war cabinet have the responsibility and understanding that they need to be united. They need to keep Israel united. This war will probably turn out to be the most difficult war Israel has ever experienced. And we need a resolute society to deal with this. And part of this is having a political system that is united and understand how complicated things are now.
There are reports of a 700-person protest up in Haifa. Are we returning to this world of protests, or is that an anomaly and it doesn't speak for broader Israel?
Well, there is also always a small portion of the society that don't really understand what's going on, are not connected to really the challenges, are forgetting that we have soldiers on the battlefield fighting, and we have foreign soldiers every day. And it's sad to see people who don't understand that at this time you don't need protest. You need to really keep the society united and supportive of the war cabinet and the army.
Okay, let's go back to the defense industry question just for a quick follow-up. Has Israel entered into a contract with the US that limits Israel's ability to produce its own in-house defense armaments or airplanes or anything, or there's no such limitation on Israel?
We don't have a limitation, but I think it became, I think it's two problems. One, it's a visionary problem. It's a problem and responsibility of the government to set the terms needed for Israel to be sovereign. Meaning the government had to put money, say we are willing to put the money to enable the industries to really reach the point where they can produce all of this. Coming to the army, which always lacks money, and saying, you know what, if you want this, you take money and invest in our own industries. It's not something that they can demand. So I think there is a very big lack of strategic national security thinking in the government, in the governments in the last 20, 30 years, all of them, by the way. And I think that looking at Israel-US relations, talking about the military aid, I've written about it in the past. I'm not in favor of military aid. I think that we can have a very, very strong and deep relation with the US. We can get a lot of funds from the US for projects, but not as military aid. Military aid creates dependence. Military aid is something that big countries give, usually to third world countries, to rule them, to dominate them. I don't think we're in the position that we need military aid. So if the US gives to Israel today $4 billion military aid, $4 billion is less than 16 billion shekels. What is 16 billion shekels in Israeli budget today? It's nothing. If we take 16 billion shekels and invest them in our industries, This is going to bring Israel a lot of money, will create jobs, will create technology, will create industrial capabilities. We'll be able to defend ourselves by ourselves. We'll be able also to freely buy capabilities from different countries, not only from the US, then we'll get cheaper deals. And having said all of that, this doesn't mean that we don't need to really have a strong partnership and do huge projects together and bring Jewish ingenuity with American money. We can do many great things. Not aid. We are not a third world country. And we need to be able to defend ourselves by ourselves. And you need leadership in Israel to really move this process into industrial capabilities and more sovereignty for Israel. It's just a matter of vision and leadership. That's it. It's not about money. We don't lack money.
General, are you still with me?
Yeah, can hear you.
Excellent. So if we reached the point where we were no longer dependent on US military aid, would that strengthen the US-Israel relationship? Would that put us on equals and we have a much stronger alliance? Or would Israel part ways with the US, no longer being obliged to have a deep relationship because we're not dependent on their funding?
I think it can strengthen the relations. I think the US was always appreciative of strong countries. And I don't see why it should weaken the relation. We can have strategic agreements. We can have really strong, I would say, basic science research together, the two countries. We can do many bilateral things. I don't think that aid creates good relations. By the way, America is giving aid to Egypt, and you see the kind of relations they have with Egypt. It's not really good.
Okay, I'm having some internet issues over here, so apologies on that. Let's do one final question if we can. So let's just end off with your sense on the resilience of Israeli society right now. And at Bitronistim, you spend a lot of time trying to speak with the public. You're traveling all over the place and really meeting with the Israeli society. After 3 months of war, what is the state of Israelis right now?
So I think that overall, I would say the society is resilient and adapt fast to this complicated and harsh reality. But I have a lot of meetings now, briefings. Yesterday, I was invited to a House parlor meeting. It was supposed to be maybe 20, 30 people. And then the woman that organized that phoned us on Sunday and said 250,000 people signed for the meeting. So we had to take a whole ballroom to do the meeting. And what we see is people are really desperate for information, for somebody to guide them, for leadership, for a better understanding of what is really happening, where is this all going. And people are worried. There is a lot of uncertainty. And I think we have a responsibility to really help strengthen the society, give them tools to understand what's going on, what should be done. People can deal with difficult situations as long as somebody explains the things, make sense of it, and give some hope and direction where we need to go. So we have now every week thousands of people joining IDSF. We're growing tremendously. And people all over Israel are asking us to come and speak with them. And of course, everybody watches on TV what we say. As usual, I'm now on my way to Channel 11. And this evening also, I was invited to speak in a big rally in Tel Aviv of reservists calling to continue and bring a decisive win in the war. So overall, I think the society is resilient, but very confused and worried.
Brigadier General Amir Avivi, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for your leadership during this war and all that you are doing for Israel. I don't know if you're able to see the chat right now, but everyone is thanking you for your leadership at this time. Thank you, of course, to all of our viewers for tuning into this briefing. We will be back with you Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Until then, stay safe, stay strong, take care, everyone.